My cousin accidentally sent me a video of my family calling me a pathetic failure, while I had been paying their bills for years. I should be grateful, they laughed. I remained silent until the next payment arrived. The phone vibrated in my hand, a message from an unknown number. A video file. Curious, I opened it. The image lit up and there they were. My mother, my aunt, and my brother Martin sitting at the kitchen table laughing, all with wine glasses in hand. Beatrice is our little personal bank, Martin said, toasting with my mother. And the best part is she doesn't even realize it, my aunt scoffed. You just have to put on a worried face and she starts shelling out the money. She's naive, my mother laughed. She thinks she does it out of love, but the truth is she's too weak to say no. Their laughter pierced my chest. I felt the blood rush to my head. My hands trembled around the phone. Me? Naive? Personal bank? Weak? After everything I had done for them. Paying their rent, covering my mother's debts, helping Martin when he got into trouble with the bank. I believed it was out of love, that's how family worked. But to them I was just a money machine. I breathed. Anger burned inside me, but I wasn't going to react immediately. Not if, to them, I was an ATM. The time had come to close the account. They were going to learn what happened when the bank stopped operating. I didn't sleep all night. The video kept replaying in my mind over and over again. Their laughter, their mockery, my mother's words calling me weak, my brother Martin toasting as if it were a celebration, delighted at how easy it was to manipulate me. But what hurt me the most wasn't what they said, it was that they were right about something. I always said yes, I always gave in because I could afford it. For years I worked as an investment banker at one of the most prestigious funds in the country. My salary was very high, but I didn't just depend on that. I had made smart investments in promising tech startups and real estate. My capital was considerable, and my family knew it. I never hid it. I saw no reason to do so. If someone in the family had financial problems, helping was the right thing to do. Flashback 1 year ago. Look, honey, the rent has gone up too much this year. My mother sighed on the phone. And the pension isn't enough. I had the bank app open. How much do you need? $3,500. I didn't even blink. I transferred the money in seconds. Thanks, honey. I knew I could count on you. And she hung up without another word. Another flashback 6 months ago. Look, I swear it's the last time I'll ask you. Martin sounded nervous. I need to cover this, just until the company takes off. How much? 20,000. I thought for a moment. I knew I would probably never see that money again, but he was my brother. I'll make the transfer tonight. Back to the present. Every memory transformed into a truth I could no longer ignore. It wasn't help, it was a routine. A routine in which I was the inexhaustible resource, the solution to every problem, the guarantee that they would never have to worry too much. The next morning I got up early and got ready as always, as if nothing had happened. I put on an elegant suit, drank my coffee, and went to work with a serene expression. The best performance of my life. But in my mind something had changed. At 10:42 a.m. the first call. Mom. I didn't answer. At 11:15 a.m. the second. Aunt Carmen. I didn't answer either. At 12:30 p.m., a message from Martin. Hey, Mom needs you to transfer her money for the water. Can you do it now? My first impulse was to open the bank app, but I stopped. For the first time in my life I stopped. I can't. I'm having some financial problems, I replied. 3 dots appeared on the screen. He was typing. What problems? Don't tell me you've become broke now. I smiled coldly. It's not greed, brother. I've simply decided that everyone should pay their own bills. 5 minutes without a reply. At 1 p.m. a furious call from Mom. What does this mean, Beatrice? She exclaimed as soon as I answered. Everyone should pay their own bills? What are you talking about? That I'm not going to pay anything anymore. Mom, I replied calmly. Absolute silence. You must be kidding. No, Mom. I've thought about this a lot. I think I've done enough. Agitated breathing from the other end of the line. Then an icy tone. I knew you'd eventually become selfish. I took a deep breath. If selfish means wanting to live my own life, then yes, Mom, I've become selfish. And I hung up. Chaos erupted in less than 24 hours. 1 a.m. Martin banging on my door. Open up, Beatrice, he roared from the other side. Don't ignore me. I poured myself a glass of wine and watched him through the peephole. He was beside himself. I know you're there. You can't do this. Since when do you think you're so special? I didn't open. I didn't owe anyone any explanations. After 10 minutes of shouting, I heard him walk away, cursing. The bank was officially closed. But while all this was happening, a single question haunted me. Who sent me that video? It wasn't a public recording. It was a private moment at my mother's house. Yet suspicions. There was one person in my family who wasn't in the video, someone who never asked me for money and who always stayed out of it, but I couldn't be sure. Not yet. The final outburst. The knock on the door echoed throughout my apartment. Beatrice, I know you're there. Martin yelled hoarsely. Open the door right now. I poured myself a glass of wine with absolute calm. I looked at the clock. 1:17 a.m. I smiled. They couldn't stand it for a single day. Another louder knock. You can't do this. We're family. The old family card. They used it when it suited them. If you don't open, I'll call Mom. She'll come and put you in your place. I let out a sigh and walked calmly to the door. I turned the knob and opened it with a serene expression, as if I were the hostess of a meeting. Martin barged in, breathing heavily. His eyes were red, his jaw tense, and his hands clenched into fists. What's wrong with you? He blurted out furiously. Why are you acting like a selfish person? I crossed my arms and watched him calmly. Since I saw a very interesting video. His face changed instantly. His skin lost its color. What video? He tried to sound indifferent, but the tension in his voice betrayed him. Without answering, I walked to the table, picked up my phone, and with the same calmness with which I had opened the door, pressed play. Mom's laughter, Aunt Carmen's, and his own filled the apartment. Beatrice is our personal bank. You just have to put on a worried face and she starts shelling out the money. She's too weak to say no. I paused the video and looked up. Martin swallowed hard, but tried to regain his composure. It's not what it seems. Don't interrupt me, I said. It's exactly what it seems. I took a step forward. For years I've paid Mom's rent, your debts, Aunt's expenses because I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought I did it out of love. He opened his mouth to say something, but I raised a hand, stopping him. But now I understand that I did it because you saw me as an ATM with legs. He remained silent. I took the opportunity to deliver the final blow. Martin, you won't receive another penny from me. His face went from surprise to fury in an instant. You can't do this, he yelled. We're counting on you. Well, stop counting. His fist slammed on the table. You're leaving us ruined. Oh yeah. I arched an eyebrow. And what did you do with all the money I gave you? Martin gritted his teeth. He had no answer. I saw him inhale deeply, trying to calm down, and I knew he would change his strategy. Mom is sick, B. His tone became pitiful. If you do this to her, you could make her condition worse. Enough. He froze. If you think I'm going to fall for that cheap manipulation, then you still think I'm the same as always. I picked up my phone and unlocked it calmly. You know what? Let's make this easier. What are you doing? I'm blocking your number, Mom's aunts. I'll stop going to see you. You're not serious? I am serious. I touched the screen a few times. Block contact. Martin swallowed. He took a deep breath. And then he did something that surprised me. He smiled. Do you think this is over, B? I looked at him emotionlessly. For me, yes. For you, it's about to begin. Martin turned on his heels and walked towards the door. But before leaving, he stopped and looked at me with a mocking grin. By the way, where did you get that video? I froze. That day it wasn't just Mom, Aunt, and me, he smiled maliciously. Cousins Yano and Sophia and their older brother Gabriel were there too. My thoughts stopped. It hadn't been Martin or my aunt who sent me the video. It had been someone else. Martin gave me one last look of contempt and left, slamming the door. I stood in the living room, feeling a strange mix of relief and bewilderment. Why would one of my cousins send me this? Daniel, Sophia, and Gabriel had always been kind to me, but never particularly close. They had never asked for money, never intervened in family matters. And yet one of them had decided to open my eyes. I picked up my phone and looked at the screen. A new goal had been set in my mind, to find out who had sent me that video and why. Martin left, but the war wasn't over. I knew Mom would try to call me. I knew Aunt Carmen would try to contact me with her usual passive-aggressive messages. But what really intrigued me was the video. Who had sent it to me? And why? I turned off the living room lights and sat in the darkness with my phone in hand, looking again and again at the anonymous message. It wasn't a mistake. Someone wanted me to see it. The names of my cousins floated in my mind. Daniel, Sophia, Gabriel. They had been at that dinner. They couldn't be heard in the recording, but if Martin was right, they were present. And now I was certain that one of them had made the decision to show me the truth. But why now? The next morning my phone had 7 missed calls from Mom. Messages from Aunt Carmen ranging from pleas to veiled complaints. I ignored them. But what caught my attention was an unknown number. A single text message. I hope you saw the video. I had to do it. I sat up in bed, my pulse racing. There was my anonymous mystery person. I replied quickly. Who are you? The dots appeared. The person was typing. And then, it doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you knew the truth. You did the right thing cutting them off. Yes, I typed. If it didn't matter who you are, you wouldn't have taken the risk of sending it to me. I want to know why you did it. A minute of silence, then a new reply. Because I'm sick of them. My heart pounded. It was Gabriel. Gabriel, the oldest cousin, always quiet, always observant. He never asked for money, never got involved in family dramas. And now it was he who had opened my eyes. Let's talk in person, I wrote. 3 minutes of silence, then an address. We met at a small cafe in the city's financial district. Gabriel was already sitting at a table in the corner with a steaming black coffee in front of him. When he saw me enter, he looked up and looked at me with a mixture of weariness and relief. I knew you'd come, he said softly. I sat across from him, not taking my eyes off him. Why did you send it to me? He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Because you deserved it. Because if anyone had to know the truth, it was you. And why now? Gabriel leaned forward. Because I was you too, Beatrice. I didn't expect that answer. Gabriel took a deep breath and spoke calmly. Years ago, when I got my first job, Mom and Dad didn't have enough money. I didn't earn much either, but I gave them what I could. First, it was just temporary help. Just like with you. I crossed my arms, feeling a chill run down my spine. But then it became a habit, he continued. Every month, as if it were an obligation. Mom made me feel guilty, and I couldn't give them more. Dad said it was the right thing to do. My sister Sophia also took advantage. She asked me for things, said I was luckier and should share. He leaned back in his chair and looked out the window. When I wanted to stop, they attacked me. They became cold. They called me selfish. They made me feel like I was the problem. It was the same story. How did you get out of that? I asked softly. Gabriel smiled ironically. I was more radical than you. I changed my number. I moved to another city without telling them. I let them sink in their own misery. And when they tried to find me again, they no longer had access to me. Then why did you get involved in my case? I asked cautiously. Gabriel held my gaze. Because Martin wanted to do the same thing to you that they did to me. My skin crawled. Martin knew that if you found out the truth, you'd stop funding everyone. So he tried to hide it. And to make sure you never found out, he asked Sophia to delete any messages or evidence that could make you suspicious. I put a hand to my mouth, incredulous. How did you know? Because I heard it. Sophia told me without knowing that I would tell you. She thought I was on their side. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. So the whole family was involved? Gabriel nodded solemnly. That's why I sent you the video. I didn't want the same thing to happen again. I sipped my coffee and let the words sink in. They don't just do it for the money, do they? I murmured dryly.
No, Beatrice.
It's that they no longer know how to live any other way. Since we were kids, our parents taught us that there would always be someone to rescue them. They didn't want to work more than necessary. They didn't want responsibilities. Why bother if there was always someone willing to pay the bill? Gabriel rested his elbows on the table and looked at me seriously. They prefer to depend on someone else rather than make an effort. It's easier for them to manipulate someone than to find a stable job, save, or face life as responsible adults. My throat went dry. So when one provider gets tired and leaves, they look for another. Exactly. And you were the next big investment. I was silent for several seconds, my mind processing everything quickly. They had tried to manipulate me until the very end. But not anymore. No more. I looked at Gabriel and nodded resolutely. Thank you for telling me the truth. He smiled as if he knew he had done the right thing. What are you going to do now? I took a deep breath and smiled. I'm going to do something they don't expect. I got up from the table, ready for the next move. It was time to end this once and for all. The coffee with Gabriel had changed everything. It was no longer just about my family seeing me as an ATM, but that they had become accustomed to living that way. It wasn't that they were in crisis or that they really needed help. They simply found it easier to depend on me than to take responsibility for their own lives. That thought churned my stomach. They had seen me as an investment, and now that the investment had been cut off, I knew they wouldn't sit idly by. 2 days later, I received a message from an unknown number. Beatrice, Mom is in the hospital. She's been very stressed about what you did. I don't know how you can live with this. I frowned. I knew this would come. I didn't reply. An hour later, another call, this time from Aunt Carmen. Beatrice, honey, I don't know what to tell you. Mom is sick. Ever since you abandoned her, she's been ill. She doesn't want to eat. She says she feels like she's lost her daughter. I sighed, keeping my voice neutral. And what diagnosis did the doctors give her? Silence. Well, it's stress anxiety. So she's not in the hospital? Well, not hospitalized, but... I hung up. Not 5 minutes passed before Martin called me. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent him a short message. If she's really in the hospital, send me the medical report. No answer. I knew they were lying. Ignoring their manipulations wasn't enough. If they couldn't get me with guilt, they would find another way to make me fall. And they tried. That weekend, while I was in a meeting with colleagues, I received a message from a friend. B, look at this. Your brother is talking about you on social media. I opened the link. It was a post where Martin wrote, "It's sad when someone in the family becomes so arrogant about having money that they forget where they came from. Family is the most important thing. But some people only see numbers. I hope they never forget that life comes full circle." The comments were full of support. People saying that money changes people, that you have to be humble, that helping family is a moral obligation. I knew that message was aimed at me, and I knew it was the first attempt to ruin me publicly. But I wasn't going to play their game. Instead of reacting with anger, I did the opposite. I responded coldly but intelligently. I opened my own profile and posted a simple message without mentioning names. There's a big difference between helping and being exploited. Family is not an excuse for emotional or financial abuse. My loyalty is not measured by my wallet. And what I've done now is not selfishness, it's self-love. The impact was immediate. Many of my friends and colleagues commented with support. Some shared their own experiences. In less than an hour, my post had more interactions than Martin's. My message was stronger because it was the truth. Martin didn't respond. He knew he had no way to win this battle. The following Monday, as I was leaving my office, I saw a familiar car waiting for me outside. It was Mom. I sighed and approached. I couldn't help it. Part of me still loved her. I still wished she were different. She rolled down the window and looked at me sadly. Honey, are you really going to do this? I took a deep breath. Mom, all I'm doing is setting boundaries. But we're family. Yes, but that doesn't mean I have to support them. She swallowed as if she wanted to cry. I don't know how you can be so cold. I smiled sadly. Mom, what you really mean is that you don't know how we're going to live now without my money. Her face tightened. I knew I was right. I didn't bother to continue the conversation. Take care, Mom. And I walked away. This time forever. When I got home, I blocked their numbers, deleted their contacts, and erased them from social media. It was the last step. A future awaited me in which my money would be only mine, in which my love wouldn't be measured in bank transfers. A future in which I was my priority. I smiled and poured myself a glass of wine. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. I did the right thing. Posted on r/Emmathasshole. 6 months have passed since I cut off contact with my family, Since I closed the bank and stopped being their source of income. I want to tell you how it all ended, but I also want to be honest. I don't know if I did the right thing. Reddit, help me understand. My last post about my family exploded on Reddit. I didn't expect so much commotion, but it went viral in a way I couldn't have imagined. The curious thing is that it didn't become famous because of the story itself, but because of the comments against me. How could you cut off the teat that fed your family? Money is just paper, but family is forever. You are selfish. Your mother raised you and you leave her washing dishes in a restaurant? Aren't you ashamed? If your brother had problems with his startup, why couldn't you keep helping him? Does it hurt you so much to share? You must have been raised by a robot if you don't understand what it means to be family. Money shouldn't be more important than love. I read hundreds of similar messages. Some defended my position, others attacked me mercilessly. And in the midst of all that, one question kept echoing in my mind. If I really love my family, how can I be sure they loved me and not my money? I missed them, I confess. Yes, I missed them. Not everything was bad. Not everything was manipulation. Mom had a warm laugh when we talked about old movies. Aunt Carmen made the best apple pie at Christmas. And Martin and I used to be very close when we were kids. Sometimes I find myself remembering them fondly. But then I see their current reality and I face a new feeling, guilt. How are they now after I left them? They had to take responsibility for their lives. Mom got a job washing dishes in a restaurant. Dad works part-time as a plumber. Martin stopped playing with startups and now he's a salesman in a store. First I was relieved. They were finally adults. But the truth is it hurts me to see them like this. Social media has played a trick on me. Every Christmas, every birthday, every holiday Martin posts pictures with mom, dad, and aunt. They're together, they're smiling. They look happy without me. I, on the other hand, am at home with a glass of wine looking at my phone screen. Sometimes I wonder if I really left them for my own well-being or simply because I wanted to win a war I didn't need to fight. Was I wrong? I wanted them to be independent. I achieved it. But now every time I see my mother in an apron in a restaurant or Martin selling in a store, something inside me stirs. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have given them one last warning before cutting off all contact. Maybe they still need me. Reddit, did I do the right thing?